They say that making mistakes is the best way to learn, and that was a big mistake. I'd like to share with you in this video everything that I learned, and I was left with no choice but to dual cab convert my GU Patrol. Check it out. Levelling the cab is important when using the 360-degree laser. Use blocks of wood between the rear diff housing and the chassis to stop any suspension movement. 30mm behind the child seat anchor points is the perfect spot to make your cut. Once the lower section is marked out, measure 30mm forward, and this is where you'll cut the roof. This lines up perfectly with your roof brace, and also your 3/4 roof lining lines up perfect as well, so you don't need to cut that and modify it, and you can reuse the factory clips, which is great. To avoid any tension in your rear wall sheet, you need to add a slight crease to allow for this 30mm slope forward. This crease will sit at the base of your rear quarter window, or where it used to be anyway, and the crease needs to go horizontal across the wall. I used 2mm zinc aluminum steel sheet and added the lower fold to prevent buckling in the rear wall. Position the sheet in place, making sure that the slight crease matches the contour of the 30mm slope forward. The last thing you want is to add tension when you force it into place to weld it. As an addition to stop rear wall drumming, I added a 6mm thick angle line cross brace. 10mm round bar works perfect to space out your side panels and line them up with your rear doors. You add a slight curve to them panels to match the profile of the cab. All exterior seams need to be evenly spot welded. You don't want to add too much heat into one area, so move it around as you're spot welding from section to section. Allowing overhang on your panels gives you more margin for error, which is great when it's your first time like it was for me. I made a custom Nolithane hold down clamp for my brake and fuel lines. This stopped them from rubbing through on the rear wall. All exterior seams were smoothed out with a sanding disc and coated in primer. As for all the interior seams, I evenly spot welded roughly every 5mm. Lining up with the factory roof lining clips is perfect. Having minimal tension in the rear wall allowed me to cut out the rear window after all exterior seams had been welded out, without the worry of any buckling. Once the custom cut glass and rubber was installed, the upper section of the rear wall is nice and rigid with minimal movement. I added rear cab mount brackets, which mounted to the coil tower cross brace. I made chassis brace stencils and had them laser cut at a 3mm steel plate. They also supported the front tray mounts. I was lucky enough to have access to a 1250 long GU dual cab tray. All I had to do was modify it to suit my mounts, chuck in a few extra braces for the headboard, and give it a fresh coat of paint. All panels with major damage from the rollover were replaced. Any other indents and imperfections, including the welding seams on the interior, were cleaned up with body filler. Masking up the cab was a bit of a mission, but once I was finally done, I was ready for paint. I chose to stay with the factory Nissan Gold, just so it would match the interior and underneath the bonnet. The old man's not just a pretty face, he's also quite handy on the spray gun. Awesome job, thanks mate. That 2-pack clear really brings out the shine. Now it's starting to look the goods. I blacked out the chassis as the final touch, just to finish it off.